Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force wins. The podcast is the result.
Welcome to Gale Force Wins. I'm Alan Dale, and with me as always, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
Doing really well. I'm really excited about this guest today.
Yeah, me as well. You know, a few years back, Jerry, I found myself on vacation with some of my neighbors. I lived in Ontario at the time and found myself down in Mexico on vacation. And these neighbors are great, right? Good Cape Bretoners. Both of them came from Cape Breton. Great kids. Their kids, my kids, all around the same age. But their son was quite a good tennis player. And I remember playing tennis down in Mexico with their son. I think he was about 8 years old at the time. And he was lobbing balls across the net at me. And I was returning each one with precision. And I started to think to myself, crap, am I missing something here? Was I meant to be a professional tennis player? I'm really good at tennis. And it was later that my next guest explained to me there's 3 types of tennis balls. There's a professional level, an intermediate level, and a beginner level. We were playing with the beginner balls. They tend to move a little bit slower, which is why I was able to return each one of those serves with accuracy. But our next guest got the hook of golf. And it was golf that became his passion. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're so excited to have Michael Ikejiani join the show here on Gale Force Wins. Michael is 18 years old from Barrie, Ontario, but let me tell you, his roots stem way back to Cape Breton. So Michael is 18 years old. He's on a golf scholarship at the University of Evansville down in the United States. It's a dream come true. Today I wore my green jacket because I know that Michael Ikejiani is going off to great things, and maybe a green jacket will be in his future. Michael, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if the green jacket will be in my future, Alan, but really happy to join you today, and thanks for inviting me on. I'm Michael Ikejiani. I'm a freshman at the University of Evansville at the moment. And like Alan said, I started off competitively in tennis. I was on the national team when I was 10 years old for a couple of years. And so that was really my start in competitive sports. Played my way up the ranks, sort of, and then sort of fell out of it once I started to get a bit older for a few main reasons. I just didn't love competing in tennis. There was a lot of cheating at the junior level because there's no like referees in junior level tennis, which is sort of, you sort of need referees in tennis, right? Because guys are calling their own lines and guys are keeping their own scores. So it's really hard to compete in tennis. You have to be really tough, and that's just not really my personality, right? I'm more easygoing and which is definitely more suited towards competing in golf because there's no real cheating. Guys just don't really cheat. So I moved over, and I love golf, so I moved over to doing competitive golf. And probably since I was 12, that's the majority of my sports competing. And so I looked for an NCAA school in the States and then found the University of Evansville. And that's where I've been for a semester now.
Michael, fantastic. Now, I'm going to tell you, Jerry is an avid golfer. So he's going to pepper you with a lot of questions, but we're going to try to keep this whole thing flowing. But I know that he's excited to open up the dialogue with you. But before we get heavy into the golf, Michael, just tell me a little bit what it's like living down in the United States right now.
Yeah, it was great. Our Evansville is a really nice place. It's at the southernmost tip of Indiana, so the weather is very, very warm, very good. In fact, when I first went down there in August, it was a little too warm. But I guess it's better to be too warm than too cold. At the moment, I'm back in Barrie visiting my parents, and the snow's out, of course. and there's no golfing going on here. So, but the weather's great. It's about 150,000 people, so it's a pretty small town, but there's not like nothing there. It was a really comfortable place for me. It felt sort of like home. Yeah, if you go out into certain places, you definitely see like a bit of a culture change, but that's expected. So.
And how was first year university? Good?
Good. I was very, very busy.
Right.
I was very busy. Busier with school than I thought I would be. So,
what are you studying, Michael?
I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in Literature. And so most of my courses were literature courses. But I had 6 in total. And going from, I think in high school you have 4 at once. And so now in university I have 6 at once. So it's just a much heavier workload and, more advanced studying, stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun and I learned a lot. The professors that I had were all great.
Great.
So it was a good experience.
Good
Are you in person? Is it in-person learning or virtual right now?
It was a mix of both. So most of my courses were virtual. One was in class. So you would go in class and everyone would wear masks. And it was a pretty small class, about 15 people. So it was doable. I think next semester they're opening it up. So next semester, most of my courses are in class.
Exciting times for you, Michael. I mean, this is dream come true. Good for you. Now tell us a little bit about you're 12 years old, step out there, you start playing golf. How's that feel?
Yeah, really good. I started, when I started, I really wasn't that good. Obviously as any beginner, you're just learning to swing fundamentals, and competing is probably really the last thing on your mind. But it was a progression. I started to get better every year and started to get more confidence in my game every year. And I think that's definitely something that I was lacking in tennis is confidence. I had no confidence as a tennis player. But I was a very good tennis player. And if I had have kept going, maybe I could be on pursuing a tennis scholarship instead of a golf scholarship. But I just have more confidence as a golfer, and that grew over the years. And I started to compete more and more. And then last year was probably my best year for not like last summer, but the 2019 summer.
Right.
I got to play in the Canadian Amateur, and that was actually in Nova Scotia. So that was a lot of fun. My uncle caddied for me, and he's a hilarious guy, and I couldn't stop laughing the whole time. But I somehow made the cut with him caddying for me. But
Right.
So that was a lot of fun.
Who usually caddies for you, Michael?
So most events I wouldn't have a caddy. Junior events they usually don't, but men's events they will usually allow caddies. And if they allow caddies, they're not like mandatory. So I might just if I don't have anyone available, I might just go at it alone. But my dad would caddy for me because obviously my dad's a great golfer himself. So he actually knows what he's doing out there and can help me out. My mom could help me as well with caddying. She's caddied for me before, and that's
does she golf as well?
No, not the same way as my dad. My dad's a 4 handicap, and my mom doesn't really golf. But
well, I hope your mom doesn't hear this podcast, Michael, because I know that your mom.
Yeah.
She enjoys golfing as well. But that's okay. So, Jerry, I know you're itching to get at it here.
I am.
Let's expand a little bit about mom and dad. I know that I know your mom and dad very well. For the audience, Michael's family and I lived in a neighborhood together in Barrie, Ontario. We lived right on the bottom of a Esquile, tiny little neighborhood, beautiful little neighborhood. And I want to tell this story in the middle of the podcast here, but it was we had moved into the neighborhood, Janet and I, and the first time we really kind of put our head up and started to meet people was around Halloween. And Halloween night, a knock came on the door, and Michael and his sister and his dad were at the door trick-or-treating. And his dad says, "I think I might know your wife." This is how the conversation started. And I said, "Oh, maybe." And he said, I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Charles Ikejiani." I said, "Well, I'll ask her." And so I saw Janet a couple hours later after she came back from the kids trick-or-treating. And I said, "You know Charles Ikejiani?" And Janet said, "We went to medical school together." So a guy that Janet went to school with lived across the street from. That's Michael's family. And we became the best of friends from that point forward. Tell us a little bit about Mom and Dad. And I know Dad's a heck of a golfer, so go on a little bit about that. That's your Cape Breton roots, and that's important for us to understand.
Right. Yeah, both of my parents are from Glace Bay in Cape Breton. So, yeah, I guess that is my roots. And my grandparents still live out there. But yeah, my dad, I would probably credit him for getting me into golf. He picked it up. He didn't play when he was young, but he picked it up once he was an adult. He actually went to school with an LPGA tour player named Laurie Kane, who's Canadian, and she asked him to come out and play with her. So she got him into it, and then he took off of it. But my dad is, he's actually a huge simulator junkie now as well. We have a golf simulator in our basement because he loves it so much. And so he's constantly down here playing and testing out this new simulator, which is great. It's pretty cool. But I would definitely credit him for getting me into golf. And he's the first one who took me to a golf course and taught me how to play. And my mom also is just so helpful throughout my entire life, and definitely wouldn't be the same person without her. So
Absolutely. Okay, Jerry, off you go, buddy. Let's get into the golf.
Well, I think the first thing I want to do, Michael, is I think a lot of people who will be watching this today will not understand much of the golf terminology. So right off the bat, I'm very impressed with your dad being a 4 handicap. As I said, I was a 10 handicap at one point and probably 15. I haven't been able to play as much as I'd like, and that's an essential part of this game. You got to be out there. Just explain for our viewers what a 4 handicap or a handicap in general is so they understand.
Yeah, so my understanding of it, basically, so a 0 handicap would mean you're expected to shoot even par on 18 holes. And if you're a 4 handicap, you're expected to shoot 4 over par on 18 holes. So the higher the handicap, essentially, the higher your score is expected to be on the golf course. And so a 4 handicap is, even a 10 handicap, like you said, that's very good also. That's not much over par.
So take me back. You're 12 years of age. You're transitioning, I think, at 12, though I understand this correctly, from tennis to golf?
Roughly, yeah.
I would be very interested in hearing the story. I'm assuming you were fairly young when you bet your dad for the first time. Do you remember that day?
I can't remember the specific day. No.
You're just being kind.
Do you beat him often
funny.
now?
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's also, I mean, it's, in all fairness to him, especially in the summer, like I have more time on my hands in previous years to play and practice. So.
Well, on that note, you're in Barrie right now. You do have a simulator in the house, and that kind of leads me to my next question. Golf is a game where you have to be continually practicing. What is your routine, and do you worry about the skill level over Christmas, or what's your plan during this holiday period?
Absolutely. So I've basically been taking it easy for the past 2 weeks. I haven't been doing, I hit on my dad's simulator the other night, just for fun, sort of, but I haven't really been doing any, important practicing yet. But I'm definitely going to start doing that soon. And with the simulator here in the basement, there's a great opportunity to get to that. I've just been sort of jogging on the treadmill. I was on a 14-day quarantine, so I haven't been able to do a whole lot. But I jogged on the treadmill, But it's definitely, I think, in the next coming weeks, I'll want to start putting. Putting practice is extremely important. I think that many people don't realize. But one of the things for me that gets the most rusty is putting. And you wouldn't expect that because you think, oh, it's such an easy little thing to do. But if you take a month off and then your speed is way off, your stroke is off, and it's really important that I do a lot of putting practice in the next few weeks. And then I'll also work on my full swing too, of course. And I might see my golf coach is out of Barrie. So this is a good opportunity to maybe have a session with him as well and look at some things before I go back.
Well, it's interesting, Michael, golf. I read a little book called The Little Red Book. I'm sure you're familiar with it, by Harvey Penick. And I think the challenge, Alan, this is where we're getting into the technical side of golf. But I see, young people in particular, they'll go to the range. The first thing you do is get a bucket of balls, take out the driver, and slam as many balls out into the to the range as possible. When I had the good fortune, maybe 15 years ago now, I actually played with a guy in a Pro-Am on the Canadian Tour that came through St. John's. Michael, I was expecting to see something different. But playing for the first time in my life with pros, I actually saw where the differences were. And it wasn't necessarily off the tee. Yes, they can bomb it 40, 50 yards past. But what really struck me was when they went into the woods, the miraculous shots out of the woods or in the bunker. The short game in this game is really, really important. You're right. So in terms of staying sharp, it's like you're in a house right now. How can you practice your putting? What do you do to simulate an actual green?
Yeah, so what you want is definitely a surface that, like you said, sort of simulates an actual green. So for us, we have a carpet in our basement, and it's sort of about the same speed that an actual golf green would be, and it's pretty flat, right? You want like a flat surface, so it simulates an actual putting surface. And so that's if you have that, that's like perfect to practice your putting. And then we have like a fake hole. So it's like I have one around, but I could show it to you. But it's just like a little green golf hole, so you can just putt into the golf hole. And so that's perfect to practice your putting like that. In terms of chipping, that's definitely much harder because it's really important to practice your chipping off real grass, and we don't have that here at the moment. So, I mean, that's something that, it's sort of really hard to practice at your house. But you can still work on your chipping mechanics and make sure you have those down before you go back and start hitting off real grass.
So you're down in university. You're down in university, Michael. How much time would you spend, or anticipate to spend, golfing each day, each week? How would that look? How does that look for a guy that's on a scholarship?
Right. So I know, like last semester, I practiced. We had a pretty normal practice schedule. We just didn't compete in tournaments because they all got canceled. But definitely last semester, like I would worry about school in the morning, like study in the morning, and then I would have classes morning, midday, and then like in the evening, I would go out and practice. So like after classes are done at like 3, go out and practice for a couple hours, or maybe play 9 holes or 18 holes. But yeah, I was very busy. But yeah, you definitely, it's hard to, and we don't practice really as a team, which, because golf is sort of, you can practice individually, and everyone has different schedules. So you sort of just find your own time, what works for you. And yeah, what worked for me was in the evening after classes.
Is everybody, the team itself, how many people are on the team down there?
We have 8 on our men's.
Right. And are they from around the world? Are they pretty much from the United States, or?
Our team is pretty much, everyone on our team, but except for myself, of course, is from the United States. Okay. And certain schools have a lot of international players, and then other schools like ours don't. But the guys on our team are from Illinois, which is obviously close to our university, Illinois, and then Indiana. And my roommate who's on the team is from Florida.
Great. Pretty competitive, the whole thing, but it must be competitive. I mean, I know that you haven't played a whole lot of tournaments, but I bet when you get into them, it's got to be competitive against the other universities.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be very competitive. I've looked at scores from the past, and it is a competitive. Obviously, we're a Division I school, so we're going up against the best schools in the country and the best players, the best collegiate players in the country for sure. So very competitive, and you have to stay on top of your game. And we have a good team. I think everyone on our team is very much capable of going out and winning like any set event. And so I'm looking forward to getting to play as a team in tournaments next semester, because I think we'll do very well.
So, so you said a Division I team. Explain that to the audience. What does that mean, Division I?
Oh, sure. So, yeah, the NCAA is separated into divisions with sports. So I'm not sure if this is how it works for all sports, but I can testify that for golf, there's 3 divisions of the NCAA. There's NCAA Division III, and there's Division II, and there's also Division I. So Division I is the highest level, and it's so the overall NCAA championship, which they now broadcast on TV, that's the final Division I tournament. Wow. And so to get to that, we need to win our conference and then go to regionals, do well in regionals, and then we qualify for the NCAA final tournament. So it's just, the thing is, there's a lot of Division II schools that are like still really, really good. And I'm sure even Division III, there's a lot of schools that are still really, really good. So it doesn't mean that if you're in Division II or Division III, you're any less better than any guy you pick out from Division I. Right. But it just means that Division I is where the best, that's where like most of the guys who go on tour will come from Division I, and the Division I is said to be like the highest level, even though many guys from Division II are great players too.
I'm going to jump in. As Alan knows, I'm chomping at the bit. A couple of things. You opened up, and we want to bring this into the spirit of the podcast. Confidence is something that I think everybody needs in life. And golf, to me, is probably one of the best examples of a metaphor for life. Just a quick thing about golf for those who don't know, and my mom talks to me a little bit when I talk about golf. Sometimes she really gets confused because I talk about low scores. Most sports are the highest score, so the concept, if you've never played, is actually hard for some people to grasp. But I'll give you an example, Michael. I love hockey, But I often thought about, you sign a $10 million contract and you take 10 shots at the net and miss them all. You still get your $10 million. In golf to me, and I've been in business for 30 years, I've been 100% commission. You miss the green, take 3 shots to get in, 3 putts. What that means is you're not performing very well. And in a professional ranks, you will not get paid. So from a confidence perspective, golf to me is really important. I'll tell you one quick story. I'm in Florida. I'm with my family. I don't have anyone to play with. So my wife and kids are doing something at Disney, and I went to the Disney course. I'll never forget it. So I ended up paired off with these 2 guys. Can't remember where they're from. They're both from the United States. And they asked me where I'm from. I'm saying, oh, I'm from Newfoundland. Oh, where's that? Canada. That's all they think. 7 holes in, I'm even par. So, Alan, for a guy like me to do 7 pars in a row in my first round of the year, because it was, I think, April, about the 7th hole, these 2 guys look at me, where are you from again? And Michael will laugh at this, and I'm like, I'm playing well beyond what I should be doing. At that point, then I start thinking about my game. I proceed to double bogey number 8. I triple bogey number 9, and I think I shot 55 on the back. So I just completely fell apart. So, Michael, what is it that you have done to keep your confidence level?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important because, like you said, compared to other sports, golf is an individual sport. You don't have any teammates there to back you up if you're not playing your best. You don't have a coach on the course with you to tell you what you may be doing wrong or how you can fix your swing or anything like that. So you really do have to rely on yourself at the end of the day to foster that confidence. I definitely think that what you were saying about having sort of a mid-round blow-up, I mean, you see that like all the time in especially in junior golf, but even on the PGA Tour, one bad hole can spiral so quickly into, 4 bad holes in a row, and then all of a sudden you're completely out of the tournament. Or
sorry to interrupt. Look what Tiger did at the Masters most recently. Absolute insanity on a hole. But anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and I think that, that's a perfect case of, I think he just, one bad shot, and then he got nervous, and his mindset on those next wedges that he put into the water, probably wasn't sufficient and wasn't where his focus level usually is. So I definitely think that there's a few things that I think I focus on when I'm playing to stay to keep that focus level high and try to avoid that sort of spiraling effect. Number one, I like to think of process over results. So instead of thinking about your results, what score you're at, whether you're going to make a par or bogey on this hole or what you're going to do in the next hole, try to think of what you can do in the moment to make your current shot good. Try to stick to your routine, do the things that you need to do for this current shot to hit a good shot. Because I think if you start thinking of what score you're at, what position you are in the leaderboard, for me, that takes my focus level away from the golf shot and throws it towards somewhere where it shouldn't be. So definitely try to stay in the moment. Definitely, I think one of the other things is I like to focus on my swing mechanics on the range, and then once I go out on the course, stop thinking about swing mechanics. Because if you start thinking about your swing mechanics while you're trying to play a competitive round, it's really setting you up for disaster because you got to be focused on sticking to your routine and hitting a good shot. And if you hit one bad shot and then start thinking about your swing mechanics, it just completely ruins your focus and ruins your confidence. So you definitely want to train your swing mechanics on the range. And then once you're on the course, just focus on competing.
Kind of getting a theme. I'm getting a theme here, Jerry. We kind of live in the moment type thing. And a lot of our guests, Michael, on the podcast come from all walks of life, and everybody kind of starts focusing in around living in the moment. And what you're talking about there is indeed that, right? Is play that shot, and to use that golf analogy, but play that shot and let's see where the life takes us after this. Jerry, you got any comments on that?
Yeah, I do. Michael, you'll laugh at this. So, I've been playing since I was 14, so I'm 54 now. The first 20 years, I worked really hard to try and break 90. Couldn't do it. 20-year quest, just couldn't do it. Anyway, I'll never forget it. I was playing a course called Terranova, and I, for the first time, shot 87. It was the middle of the season, and I don't know what happened, but I could not go over 90 for the rest of the summer. 20 years of being blocked. Then I ended up between 82 and 88. No matter what I did, I had a breakthrough. Fast forward, the subsequent 20 years, I've been trying to break 80. Have never done it. Came close maybe 5 times. One time in particular, I'll never forget, I was on the 18th hole, beautiful drive. All I had to do was hit it on the green, 2-putt for par, and shoot 78. I looked to my buddy, talking about living in the moment, and I said to him, Mike, looks like I'm going to break 80 for the first time. Wow. Should not have done that. Needed to stay in the moment. Proceeded to hit, I think it was a 9-iron, shanked it over into the woods, ended up with, I don't know, a quadruple, shot 82 or something. Anyway, that is so painful. This summer in particular, I went 3 weeks in a row and shot 80. So I've only been playing on the weekends. But anyway, yeah, like what I really like about what you've said is living in the moment. Even in this game, Alan, life is living in the moment and
right.
Process over results. When I reflect on business, it's about process. And sometimes I think, Alan and I have talked about this, Michael, you got to get up and do it. You got to, get the gig moving, but you also got to think about process. So I got another question for you. And any Canadian, I don't want you to drop names, but at the same time, Laurie Kane, like Alan, I don't know if you know much about Laurie Kane.
Yeah, she's an Islander.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, one of the most incredible golf moments was when Mike Weir won the Masters. What is your experience? There's not a lot of Canadians that are in the position you're in. Have you had the opportunity to play with any of the up-and-coming Canadians on the PGA Tour? Has that been something that has happened to you yet?
So, trying to think. I haven't been able to play with any up-and-coming on the PGA Tour. But I know, like, guys like Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin and Corey Connors, who I think all three of those guys have won on the PGA Tour now. They came up playing the same events that I did, playing in the Canadian amateurs and going to a D1 school and playing in the same events. So, I mean, it is really good for the game to see young people like that go out there and then persevere on the PGA Tour. It's amazing. And you mentioned Laurie Kane. My dad knew Laurie Kane very well. And that's one of the reasons why I started playing golf, is because he met Laurie Kane and she asked him to golf with her. So definitely, yeah.
Well,
Michael,
and it's funny. Sorry, Alan. I just got to mention this. When you talk about the LPGA Tour, I am fascinated by golf in any way. There's a guy on the European Tour right now whose name escapes me, but he was playing in the Middle East a couple of weeks ago. The stories, Alan, of people that were literally ready to put the clubs away and go into their careers, but they had that one little breakthrough. I'll remember his name after. But Brooke Henderson, Michael, I mean, I think about her, and she is just excelling on the LPGA Tour. Unfortunately, at the Women's Open today, she's 9 over par. I just checked that, and the leader is -4. So Brooke's kind of faded a little bit, but there's inspiration in this game. I find forget gender. It's just a beautiful game where you can find inspiration anywhere. Sorry, Alan, you were going to say something?
No, I'm intrigued by all of it. Michael, I want you to tell me, what was your favorite shot? You remember that? Is there something that sticks out in your mind as being, wow, I can't believe I did that?
I definitely, yeah. A specific shot, I can think of a few for sure. I got my first hole-in-one at Pinehurst. That was back in 2015. It was during a tournament competition too. And that was my first hole-in-one. My parents were there. They were, livid that the ball went in the hole.
So hold on, 2015, you're only 18 right now. How old were you when you did that?
So I would have been 13, 14. Yeah.
Holy moly. Okay, keep going with your story.
And I haven't had a hole-in-one since, unfortunately. But that's definitely one shot I can remember. But another one that's more recent that sticks out in my mind is 2019, the Canadian Amateur. My uncle was caddying for me in the fourth round. So I was, I think, even par at this point. And this fourth hole, we were playing at a course called Glen Arbor in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Right. Yeah, it's a nice course, very nice. And so on the fourth hole, it's this short little par 4. And I have 100 yards in after a nice drive. And, hit it. I airmailed the green, right over the green. I took too much club. And, I'm really in trouble now because I'm in thick rough behind the green. And I have no green to work with. And it's all running away. And so I said to Stephen, my uncle's name, I said to Stephen, should I try to go for a huge flop shot here, get it close to the hole, or should I just hit the safe play, go to the middle of the green? I'm thinking the safe play because this is a very daunting shot. I'm on a downslope with thick rough, no green to work with. And Steven's like, no. He gives me a 60-degree wedge and he says, hit the flop shot. I'm like, okay, fine. So he put confidence into me and I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I swung as hard as I could, huge flop shot, landed on the green and went right in the hole. And wow. It was crazy, yeah. So wow. that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And there you go. Take a little chance, right? I mean, we talked today about, process over results, and we talked about living in the moment. It's okay to take a little bit of a chance every now and then as well. Jerry, I'm going to leave. You got another comment here? We're going to wrap this up with Michael because it's been a fantastic journey. Go ahead. You have anything else? Any other big burning questions you have?
I think the big question for me, and it may be cutting into what you're thinking, Alan, Michael, where do you see yourself going? What's your vision for your game? And, how are you getting there?
I definitely look forward to competing in the NCAA, of course. Like I said, I think we have a very good team. I'm going to have 4 years there, so I'm going to have lots of time in terms of golf to try to compete and try to make the regionals and then make the NCAA tournament. So I think, for me, I have high-level amateur tournaments coming up for sure. So I really look forward to those because, I've competed in those types of events before. And I made the cut at the Canadian Amateur. But I just haven't had a ton of success at a high-level amateur event. So I really look forward to playing in, the U.S. Amateur, the Canadian Amateur, high-level events, and hopefully, having continued success and competing at those high-level events. In terms of a professional, because I get asked a lot especially by people who maybe aren't too familiar with the game, are you going to go pro? They're probably not. I'm probably going to try to get a regular job and instead of turning pro. It's just, there's so many good players. And going pro is such a grind I think in any sport, really. but especially in golf because, you're totally on your own. It's an individual sport. But I definitely think that, I'm really satisfied with competing at the high level amateur events. There's so many good amateur players too. And if you look at like the Augusta, for example, like the winner of the US Mid Amateur and US Amateur get to play in the Masters. So, how cool is that? If you play well in the US Amateur, then you get to go to Augusta National. So it really is still a very high level. And I think that for me, high level amateur events are definitely my future.
Wow. Michael, you've taken us on a great journey. Fantastic. And we're so proud of you. As Canadians, we're proud of you. Tell us, Michael, what piece of advice would you give a person starting off golf, young or old? What piece of advice would you give a Canadian kid who's looking at sport in general and looking at a path that you're following into the American college system? What piece of advice would you give those folks?
My advice, I would recommend, I think people don't practice short game enough as opposed to long game. I would definitely recommend, it might not be fun to practice 5-foot putts all day long, but practicing a lot of 5-foot putts, that's how you get good at putting. And if you practice 5-foot putts, you'll be so much more confident when you're putting on the course as opposed to if you don't. So I definitely say heavily practice your short game. And I also think that when you're competing, I think a lot of people think of swing mechanics when they're competing, or when they're not necessarily competing, but let's just say playing a recreational round. And I think that, focusing on swing mechanics it's good on the range, but on the course, it usually sets you up for disaster. It ruins your confidence. And you're probably just better off sticking with the mechanic you're currently doing and just being confident in that. And I also think that when you're practicing on the range too, I would recommend, practice on the range as if you're on the course. Because like Harry said earlier, I think a lot of people go straight to the range and just start bombing golf balls as fast as they can and as hard as they can. And, that type of practice isn't really going to translate to what you're doing on the course. So I would definitely say practice on the range like you're practicing on the course, and then you'll play much better once you get out there.
Jerry?
Alan, this is a saying that Michael may have heard before. The toughest distance on the golf course is the distance between your ears.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a statement, that I think you could say for life in general. Michael, you've made it clear professional golf may not be in your future. Do you envision golf in terms of teaching, being a pro at a course? What professionally do you see? You're doing an arts degree. Do you think you're going to take that and then have golf on the side? Just what do you envision there?
Yeah, definitely. I have a few friends who want to be like PGA teaching pros, or like a PGA club members. But for me, I would say it's probably not. I do want to go into teaching actually, but I wanted to go into like academic teaching as opposed to sports teaching. But I have a few friends who are going that route, and if you love golf, if you love the game, then I think it's a perfect job for you, right? Because you get to be out on the golf course while you're working. So I don't see,
right.
It can't get any better than that if you really love the game and it's really what you want to do.
Right.
Well, Michael, I'm just going to say thank you. We're rooting for you. Who knows in this game, you could end up on the professional ranks. If
Yeah.
you don't, I can tell that you are a very, very respectful young man. And frankly, that's all that you need in life. If you're going to treat your fellow human well, you've got a great life ahead of you. Thank you for coming on. Alan?
Yeah, Michael, can't begin to thank you enough. It was a real pleasure to have a conversation with you about kind of life in that university school system in the United States, what it feels like to be on a team like that. It's got to be fascinating for a lot of people that's listening into that. Their kids or themselves might be pursuing that path. You come from really good background, Mike. Your mom and dad and your sister, wonderful people. We wish you all the best down there in university. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. My takeaway from it is golf or not, it's live in the moment. And that's exactly what it is. One shot at a time here in life. And you've really settled that point home for us. And we really appreciate it. Michael, if I can leave the audience with one small piece of advice, and that is the world needs more Michael Ikejiani. Thanks for joining Gale Force Wins.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's Gale Force Wins, WINS.com.